Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Freight Break. My name is Dan Lindsey. Welcome to the show where we break down freight-related topics to help you understand the industry better in practical ways that actually helps you grow your business. This show is provided to you by the Broker Carrier Summit and is part of the BCS Network's Freight Masterclass series. The Broker Carrier Summit is one of the fastest growing, most dynamic communities in the logistics industry. If you'd like to learn more, go ahead and visit us at our website, www.brokercarriersummit.com. Also, if you find this content valuable, please subscribe and share it with your network. We have a really great conversation queued up for us today around broker transparency. But first, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to take a couple of announcements. First of all, if you have not registered for the Broker Carrier Summit in Indianapolis, Indiana, my hometown, next April, go over to our website and do so now through January 1st. If you use the promo code HOLIDAY25, you will receive $25 off early bird pricing. It's the last best deal we're going to have this year, so do not miss the opportunity to put this expense on 2024's taxes if that matters to you. Also, we have partnered with the Convention Manifest in Las Vegas. If you are in the freight industry and you are at all interested in technology that helps you optimize or streamline your business, or if you're just curious to learn how transportation technology can help you at all, you would like to join us in Las Vegas, the BCS is actually going to be coming out with an announcement in the next couple of weeks around Manifest. We have a little surprise planned for everybody there as well. Also, starting January, we'd like to welcome our title sponsor for not just the Freight Break, but also for all of the BCS Freight Network's podcasts in 2025. Our title sponsor is going to be TIE Software, and they'll be sponsoring us, as well as the Road to the Summit with Kevin Hill and Trey Griggs, and whatever the other shows we decide to roll out next year. So please welcome them aboard starting in January. All right. One more thing. This is going to be the last live show that I'm going to do for 2024. I'm going to take the next couple of weeks and focus on year-end stuff, all the fun, boring stuff that everybody's going to focus on at the end of the year. The next live show will be on January 7th, the first Tuesday in January. All right. I think that's all the announcements. We are going to continue our conversation now around broker transparency. And I wanted to first and foremost kind of make my position a little more clear. I may come out and do a deeper dive on this in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks. But I wanted to kind of summarize here today. I personally am all for transparency, and the BCS is all for transparency, so long as that transparency is voluntary. I think personally that voluntary transparency builds trust faster than anything else, not just in trucking, but also in life. So if you don't have any information, if you have information to share and you share it voluntarily, it builds trust 100 times faster than if someone mandates that you share that information. So with that being said, I want to bring on our carriers. Let's bring them on here. We have Mr. Adam Wingfield. There we go. Adam Wingfield. We have Texas trucker Jamie Anderson, Jamie Hagen, Steve Talamo, and Tristan Bordallo. All of these gentlemen, these fine gentlemen, are part of the BCS Freight Network. They were all in Fort Worth. They've all been to a Broker Carrier Summit, and love to have you guys on the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, thanks, sir. Glad to be here.
Very cool. Well, let's go around the room here. Adam, let's start with you. Opening question: why did you get into transportation in the first place? And we'll take it from there.
I really didn't have a choice, man. Transportation kind of found me. I grew up in Alcaloo, South Carolina, and one of the things that I always grew up around was around diesel trucks and farm equipment. I had an interesting dynamic on life, which, honestly, I really didn't have much of a choice back in 2000. Actually, back in 99, my father passed away. My mother passed away when I was 11. So I had to do something in regards to expediting my way of being able to take care of myself. So I went and got my CDL on my birthday in 2000. And that was my road to start in this wonderful and ever changing and elaborate industry. So that's my story. And Dan's disappeared. And Dan's a circle.
Yeah, he's been having some connection issues.
There he goes.
All right. This is going to be a fun show, everybody. We got some technical difficulties on my end, so I'm going to apologize. I should have apologized at the outset, but I'm going to apologize now in case if I keep jumping in and out of the show, just keep saying what you were saying, and we'll pick it up on the on the back end. All right.
Sorry about that. Next year makes 25 years being in this business, so it's been a long part of my life. So that's part of transportation for me.
Very cool. Jamie, Texas trucker. How about you, my friend?
Hello, y'all. Texas trucker. Well, my evolution. I come from a background. I also grew up on a farm ranch most of my life. Down here in Texas, it's big farming, ranching. Been around livestock my whole life. Hay, that kind of thing. My evolution didn't start with trucking 25 years ago. I've been in it 8 years. As we evolve through life, our body changes. I've been in the construction trades my whole life, building and that kind of thing. And, as my body started to get older and deteriorate, and I couldn't handle the heat of Texas out in the middle of the summer anymore, I started looking for other avenues to support my family. And this is where I landed. It wasn't my dream job. I love to build. I love the trades, but it's fit me well, and I've stood right in, learned a lot, still learn every day. But that's where we're at. As you evolve through life, you gotta, just like you do in transportation and trucking, you gotta evolve, and you gotta change your plan as you go, as you can when you need to, and that's what I've done to get here.
Very cool. Thank you, my friend. Tristan, you have a long and winding journey in trucking. Talk to us about what brought you into the industry. You're muted, my friend.
Well, I came in 2004, worked for my friend's dad's LTL brokerage, learned that, and then thought I could do a better job in truckloads. So I opened up the agency for Covenant Transport Solutions in Los Angeles, did that for 10 years. And then I started to think, why are all the guys that I've met, like the carriers, are going out of business? It can't be that hard. So yeah, I opened up my first asset-based trucking company in 2000 at the end of 2018, and been doing it for 6 years. I also have a brokerage that I have for my legacy accounts, and I'm coming back to the brokerage to with all the 6 years of learning how to run an asset-based trucking company and using that to be a better broker. I consider myself a born-again broker, so I understand now how hard it is to run a trucking company.
I love that. I love that mindset. Very cool. Steve, how about you, my friend?
Yeah, I was in the supply chain transportation side of the business with corporate America for about 25 years. In 2022, my business partner Clinton and I decided to open up Cleve's Logistics with the ports right here in Charleston. We decided to get into the drayage side of it. Been doing that for a little over 2 years, and just last month we actually started the brokerage side of the company as well. So kind of both sides of the house now as we close out 2024 and into 2025.
Very, very cool. Well, I think we lost Jamie Hagen for a minute or so. If he comes back, we'll get his intro as well. Gentlemen, you all know me, at least I think you do. I am not, if there's one word that does not describe me, it's formal. And so we're not going to have a formal Q&A. We're not going to have a time to debate. I want to have a conversation because I believe, and the BCS believes, that every voice matters, not just in the transparency conversation, but in every conversation in the industry. I think when people talk and get together and actually have conversations, ideally face-to-face, that's where the actual change happens. So, Jamie, let's start with you, my friend. You're on the owner-operator side, small but carrier side. You and I have gone back and forth over LinkedIn. Hopefully we're still friends. I think we are. But go ahead and tell me your position on transparency and from the owner operator perspective.
Yeah, I love y'all, Dan, man. I don't have a problem with y'all, and when this blows over, we'll still be friends. You know what I mean? But right now, I got to stand for the owner operators and small carriers. That's my position. I am a trucker. I do sit in the seat every day, and that's where I'm going to stand and who I'm going to stand for. I might ruffle some feathers, but we can agree to be adults and agree to disagree on the things we can agree on and move forward. And that's the way I really feel about it. I think transparency is a great thing. Go back a couple of days ago, we had a broker put up that he is transparent with his carriers. He lets them know what's in the load, and he says he's got great relationships. And I asked him a very specific question. So if he wasn't doing that, do you think that has helped you build the relationship with the carriers you got? It was a pretty good conversation. I think you waded in on it. But, transparency to me is something that's going to mend the rift, so to speak. It's been there 45 years. It's not nothing new. It's not a new regulation. It's not a new requirement. It's been there all along. The problem today is most carriers don't know their rights. They don't know the CFRs. I guarantee you, if you go out on the road and any truck stop and ask a carrier, probably 7 or 8 out of 10 of them is going to tell you, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know, because they've never read the CFRs. So as we go forward and educate carriers and owner operators, which is the majority of the industry as far as authorities are concerned, maybe they'll think about it differently, right? To me, personally, I get my rates. I don't move my truck unless I do. I'm fortunate to have a network of brokers, and I run 100% spot freight. 100% spot freight. I have no direct shippers, and this has been my business model from the start, even when I was managing another company before I came here, and that's where I started building my network. I trust these guys. They trust me. We're friends. We might not agree on everything either, but we're open to conversation. We talk a lot. Sometimes I'll talk to my brokers an hour or two a week. They'll just call each other in bull. Of course, I'll call and ask them if they got anything, because I'm in their area, and then they'll just go into other conversations. Conversation is good, and even if we can't agree, conversation is still good. But I hope as carriers get educated to their rights, and these are there, and the transparency, if it comes to fruition, I think it's going to benefit everybody. Me, myself personally, I'm going to get my rate, or I'm not going to move my truck. I'm not going to get impatient. I'm not going to jump out here and haul $2 a mile freight knowing that I'm losing money or not making any money. I don't work for free. And I'm not going to. Not only do I not work for free, I'm not going to put my company in a position where it's working at a break-even rate. You can't do it. You can't put back for the long haul things you need, the maintenance on your vehicle, the rebuild every 8 or 10 years, the end frame. The company's got a profit, and if it don't, then we're failing, plain and simple. And there's a lot of people failing. A lot of people been failing. To me, what I'm more concentrating on, what I would like to see, is the extent to the co-broker agreements, because right now that information, we don't have it. We don't know the brokers that we're working with through proxy. Me, like anybody else, has a do not use list. I've got brokers that I will not run for, and I will not run for them for a reason. You cheat me out of detention, layover, or do certain things. If you lay out a load badly and you mess up the schedule and it just eats me up, I won't work for you again. I'll do not use you, because I'm not going to work for somebody that doesn't know how to plan a load properly and subjects me to their planning. I know how to plan. I know how to pre-plan. Very good. That's one of my strongest points out here. But I think I'm interested in seeing the co-broker agreements. I'm interested in seeing the situation with the fuel surcharge. I'm interested in seeing how many times that I call a broker and tell him, well, look, I've been on this load. I've been tied up 8 hours in a dock. Generally, I give them 4 hours out here under refrigerated unit. So after that 4, then it goes into detention. I'm owed 4 hours of detention. And they'll tell me, well, we'll put you in for it. And then we never hear back from where you go. So that will also land you on the do not use list. I'd be interested to see if they've actually submitted for that, or if they just ghosted me and they did receive it and I didn't receive compensation for it, and the amount of compensation they're receiving for it and the percentage I'm getting out of the tension of me being held hostage in a door. We fell victim to the mentality of industry standard. Well, who sets the industry standard? It's the people that's got you locked into a dock for 8 hours. When I book my truck and plan my loads, I don't look at a rate per mile so much as I look at the time it's going to occupy my truck. So if I see that it's going to occupy my truck, okay, I have 4 hours to load, 4 hours to unload, that's 8 hours added to the travel time. Say I'm running a 300-mile route, that's 7 hours. So then I'm at 15 hours. I need to be somewhere around $100 an hour. That's how I book my freight. If I get tied up at 8 hours on the load and 8 hours on the unload, that's 8 hours added to it that comes off my 70-hour clock. I think transparency will bring a lot of that to light. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to benefit not only carriers, it's going to benefit brokers as well. Because what we're going to do is the people that is being predatory, not you, not Bill Robinson, not Mr. Busey, the good brokers, but the brokers that are being that way, when they're exposed, then they'll start losing freight because people will stop working for them, and they'll benefit y'all because that freight will come to good brokers, which will benefit carriers. That's my stance.
Right. Gotcha. Well, I appreciate it, my friend. I heard most of that. I got internet issues. I'm on my cell phone now, so hopefully that won't happen again. So we hear that, and a lot of what you say is it is valid, and we do understand that. Tristan, you've been on both sides of the broker carrier conversation in your career. Tell us where you sit on the transparency conversation.
Well, I'm very neutral to it. I just it's been available, like what Jamie said. It's been available for a very long time, and the problem is I see is I'm more on the side of it should be volunteered. If you're a great broker, you're going to do that, but also the responsibility has to be shared between the carrier and the broker. And I feel what I've learned this whole path of owning these trucks is I didn't know the responsibility that the carrier holds. And Jamie's absolutely right about how much it costs. It's $100 an hour. Everyone talks about rate per mile, but I think what we should talk about is dollars per day, rate per hour. Those are the things that the brokers don't talk about. And they have a responsibility to the carrier to tell the shipper, what type of this budget that they are prescribing to a load and saying, hey, this is what you guys should pay because it's industry standards and so forth. But the reality is, if you knew what it costs, you wouldn't do that. So the broker has a responsibility to represent the carrier in a way where he really does care about the guys that are hauling it. I mean, think about LTL. I always go back to LTL. LTL, we know that they're going to pick up at every single call. They just need a 2-hour window. It's different from truckloads, but the reality is those guys can do whatever they want to the customers. Hey, we're leaving in 15 minutes if you don't load up my truck. Hey, we're going to charge you $50 an hour if you don't load up this truck. I mean, they have it their way. Oh, we're going to charge you because you took 1 feet more, or you gave us more weight. There's all these reclassifications. And I guarantee you as a broker, you could not go and say, those are, nope, that's not the industry standards. Nope. According to, RateView and Sonar and Green Screen AI, like you can't do that with an LTL company. They got you. So, I mean, I think that, but they're organized. And I think we have a responsibility.
Well, there's also only like 30 LTL companies that run nationwide freight. So they have the bully pulpit there, right?
Yeah, there's 33, right?
33, yeah.
No, but like what I'm saying is, why can't we do that on the carrier side? Because you could tell your customer like, hey, look, who's on that bottom 30, right? You know what that's going to get you. That's going to go on the rail. That's going to have some crappy service. Or you could go to the top, the Old Dominions, the FedEx, and they could, that's where we need to try to figure out how can we get to that point where we have the organization to say, hey, look, this is what it is. This is not the industry standard. This is really our cost. Like we should be transparent as carriers. Like, and what are we rolling with? Are we rolling with 2002 trucks And 1997 trailers and insurance that could barely cover your freight, or, you know, a driver that doesn't speak English. I mean, I don't know, man. Those are the things I'm competing, or the guys that are double pledging, right? Guys having
Can
their
I-
own.
Can I point something out here real
Yeah.
quick? I want to make sure you're aware of this. So prior to the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, before deregulation, every carrier was required to carry their own tariff. They was required to carry it in the glove box of their truck, every truck. And if there was a problem with the load, the shippers, the manufacturers, or whoever they was loading for had to revert back to the carrier's tariff. We have lost, except household goods. Household goods still has their binding tariff. Deregulation in 1980, the Motor Carrier Act, pretty much basically took our tariffs and threw them out the window. And now, instead of us being able to control our company and having control of our company and setting our own rates for what we need to compensate, we're controlled by the contracts. So we lost control of our companies with the Motor Carrier Act of 1980 by losing our tariffs. So it's important that everybody knows that.
Well, like
a question about that though, Jamie. Question about that though.
Jamie,
Is
the
like,
publicly traded companies do have their own tariffs if you want to do business with them. So those are I think they're tariff 100s that they have on every single website that you could pull up for a Covenant or Swift, and they'll tell them. I mean, that's what we should, as a carrier, we should be telling our customers that look, we're gonna, if you want our trucks, this is how much it should cost. But I mean, it's been, you know, it's been taken away from us in a way where, but we also have to be organized as you know, as carriers and truckers in what we're trying to go after in terms of that shipper direct, if that's what we want.
well, that would be the case that I would make for that, is that an argument can be made that, you know, you don't control your own company anymore, but you could just as easily go out and hire a salesperson and get direct freight as a carrier. Am I wrong in that, or?
No, you're not wrong at all, because we still need to be able to connect to shippers. We need we need the technology. We need the, we need to be flexible. We need to make sure that we could meet their capacity requirements. There's so many things that, I mean, no disrespect to someone who's owning one truck, but when you're owning a fleet of trucks, you have to make sure that you could meet all the shippers' demands.
Yeah. Well, let's get to Steve and Adam real quick. First of all, I wanted to ask a question. This is open to everybody. So there's a big question, or a big point, is that brokers don't know what it costs to run a carrier or run a truck. And that's valid. As a broker for over 10 years, you know, I couldn't tell you, you know, half the costs that go into operating a truck. I admit that freely. At the same time, though, I wonder, for those on the carrier side, do you know how much it costs per load for a broker to book a load?
Well, I do.
You do, yeah.
I think until you get to the other side of that table is when you start learning that other side of it, right? So, I mean, if you're just 100% focused and you're 100% on the carrier side, you don't. And the broker doesn't understand the other side as well. So until you see both sides of that fence, or on both sides of that table, it's where all the dots get connected, and it all comes to light. To be honest with you, the different fees, the different costs on each side of it.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from.
So let me throw something in here real quick. So the ATRI, the American Transportation Research Institute, released this year, it's $2.27 a mile. Every mile you operate a truck. We had Mr. Robinson, Mr. Bill Robinson, and he is a big carrier, come out the other day and actually give a figure on what it costs for him to operate his trucks. $2.05 a mile. Now he's running automatics. He's running fuel efficient trucks. He's running, probably paying his drivers 55-60 cents a mile to do this, and he says it's $2.05 a mile. Of course, as you get bigger, you receive deeper discounts through the collective bargaining than you do being a small carrier. So the $2.27 a mile is a realistic number. I bet you that it don't cost $2.27 a mile for a broker to book freight, and that's my opinion on that.
So let me jump in really quick. Let me jump in on that. So number one, and good afternoon, if I haven't had the opportunity to say so. Let's talk a little bit about data. When it comes down to ATRI data specifically, we got to be careful. There's no, and one of the things I could tell you, Jamie made a comment earlier, and he said, you know, 8 out of 10 carriers, he mentioned that 8 or 9 out of 10 carriers don't know anything about the CFR. Well, I would go as far to say is that 8 out of 9, probably even on the greater side, don't know how to manage and calculate operating costs as they fluctuate daily. Operating costs are not something that are just standardized, right? So if it's $2.27 a mile a day, all it takes is a spike in fuel, a decrease in fuel efficiency. Hey, I'm going through mountains, and then my break-even point changes. It could be 207 a day. It might be 215 a day. It's very liquid. And the one thing that I struggle with the ATR research, and I've been very, very vocal about this, is their sample size, right? So if you go back and look at where they sample 120 different companies, 120. When you last look at the amount of motor carriers and the amount of trucks that are operating on the highway, it's in the hundreds of thousands. So it's from a sample perspective, we're not getting a good true sample like the individual owner operators. And God Almighty, I just looked at what Jamie was drinking. I thought it was something else. But the crazy thing about that is that there's so many gaps in education from a carrier understanding the business acumen side of it. You know, when you get behind the wheel of a truck and you can, go through an 18 range like nobody else's business, that doesn't mean that you're a business owner. There's a lot of different things when it comes down to it. A trucker, a business owner, and a truck driver are 3 different types of people. So when I think about that, I think most importantly that we have to understand that, especially, prior to deregulation, and I think that was a point made earlier, and I don't know who made that point, was like, hey, we were getting information at that point, but you got to remember prior to deregulation, there's only like 5 or 6 trucking companies out there during that time that were dominating the space. This was an opportunity for capitalism to really live. So when I look at it, and this kind of segues to my thought. So for those who really have read the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, the thing that stands out the most to me is that when Congress deregulated the industry, they had issues with it. And the issues that they had with deregulations and the problems that they had is that they thought it would be extremely difficult for the federal regulators alone to provide oversight just on the safety side. But you also got to remember during deregulation time, when they deregulated the industry, they also knew that it would be an extreme flood of motor carriers that entered the industry. So they knew that it would lower the barrier and it would lower that barrier entry. The problem with that is that how we transacted freight back then. So you got to remember, there were no load boards. There were no brokers back then, right? So it was a lot of freight forwarders, and there was a little bit of, I think it was just a handful of brokers. I think one of them actually got acquired back 15 years ago that really kind of started it. But
brokers, 19 of them.
Brokers wasn't even part of the picture. So like it wasn't one of the things that, and that's the one thing you got to be careful about regulation. Regulations a lot of times when I speak about regulation not being future proof. So like we didn't know AI was going to be in the process of being able to actually tender freight, book freight, call sales now back in the 1980s. So what I believe, 2 things can be true. I think you can be pro trucker, right? But then also you think that at the same time you can be neutral on transparency, because when I look at it from my perspective, and this is coming from someone that was a carrier, I've served on multiple sides. The thing that kicked my ass when I was a carrier is that I was going by like, man, I got to get $2 miles a mile. I didn't understand the break even and the operational cost. I didn't understand the variable cost. And I was like, man, as long as I get $2 a mile, I'm good. And this was back then, right? So I was like, you know what? That's the only thing that was triggering my mind. But at the time, when I first started, my critical error was not calculating that. And little did I know that my break even point was actually 20 cents higher. So I was losing money at that time. And I had no idea because I didn't have the education behind that. My thing about that, and I'll sum it now, and I'll open it up because I just needed to get this off my mind, is that the thing that transparency won't do, it won't change supply and demand, right? So supply and demand will never change, right? Transparency will never change supply and demand. Transparency also won't make you better at business from a couple of perspectives. It won't make you better as a negotiator just because you know what's in it if you don't know how to negotiate. It won't make you a better business owner in terms of being able to calculate a cost if you don't know how to calculate your costs. And I think ultimately what it really boils down to for me, and this is me, and the beauty about America is that everybody can have an opinion, and nobody on his opinion is more important than anybody else's. But I think most importantly, when it boils down to it, as a trucking company or as a business owner, the most important information that you have is your information about your business and how your business is impacted. And it's simple. If I know what's in a rate, and if I know what the rate is, I can make a choice and walk away from that rate. Carriers got to understand also that they don't have to pull this spot freight. You know, Jamie said, "Hey, you know what? I pull 100% spot freight." It's Jamie's choice. He doesn't have to if he don't want to. It's his choice. If he wants to, he wants to settle down and say, "You know what? I'm gonna get a sales team. I'm gonna settle down. I'm gonna actually do it myself." Jamie can go out there and do the same thing that Tristan or Steve does. Like that's all a choice. And I think ultimately that's what it really just boils down to. But that's my 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 6.5 cents on this topic.
Yeah, well, to that point, one of the questions that I have for carriers, I've asked this question a lot in the last few weeks, is what do you hope or what do you think that further enforcement of transparency is going to do for you? Because I'll tell you one thing it's not going to do. It's not going to make the broker's cost per load go away. And that's why I asked that question. So when I ran Linkage Logistics, we were a freight brokerage. We ran full truckload. That's all we did. Our cost per load, it wasn't calculated in cost per mile. It was calculated in cost per head. Cost per seat. So it costs us between $250 and $300 to move a single load. And our average load was only about $1,500 in total revenue. And we maintained that 15 to 17% margin. So if you take that out, we're making about $180, $200 a load. And if our costs are $250 to $300 a load, we're losing on average $50 to $70 per load. Now there were loads that we made higher margins on, and that's how we made up for that. But when it comes to the transparency conversation, I'm genuinely curious as to what carriers and what owner operators think that's going to actually do for them.
There's not going to be an enforcement difference because we're barely able to enforce now to get motor carriers actually audited, right? We have 90% of the carriers out here that have an unsatisfactory or unrated, not unsatisfactory, unrated safety rating. We're struggling to keep up with the demand of what the Secretary of Transportation back in the deregulation era was supposed to do, and that's just focus on the safety side. We haven't even got good at keeping the road safe. Like Jeff said, 21% of the carriers in terms of just equipment are unsafe for the highways. 7% of the time drivers get out on there, they're not fit for duty. So like from a safety side, like that's the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Association's primary role and responsibility is safety oversight. And they're not doing a good job at that. They're just not. It's just not there. So from an enforcement perspective, when you look at broker bonds and all of these other administrative type of enforcement, I just struggle to see any type of enforcement that's going to make any difference.
Yeah, Adam, I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying on the whole 90% have not even been, they don't even have scores of satisfactory. But of the 10% that actually do get audited, only 23 to 27% are safe. That's pretty scary. And being in California, being in business for 6 years, I've been audited by the state of California 3 times. So, I mean, I know they're doing a better job here because of the CARB and it's California. But the reality is I can't imagine all the guys why are we moving out of Cali just to avoid that? That's pretty scary. Avoiding any sort of safety audits, it's pretty scary. And I drove back down from, Houston. I was like, God, why am I taking care of my trucks when all these guys are just running with shitty ass equipment, So.
Hey, Dan, let me chime in here real quick. So,
yes.
First of all, my stance on this, right, is voluntary, right? And even within our own company, right, Clint and I have disagreements on portions of this as well. So, to Jamie's point, like we can all agree to disagree. We're all adults here, right? There's things that some people are going to agree on. At the end of the day, though, we can all shake hands and know that we're all trying to do what's better for the industry. But, and again, it comes back to, and I'm not putting the feather in your cap on this, but what a supporter I am of the Broker Carrier Summit. It all comes back to relationship, right? And if you are honest and and you're confident about the business that you're running, you would offer it up in voluntary to a carrier, right? You're not going to hold that information back, right? I mean, there is so much within these companies and within a business owner that you need to know. You ask, what does a carrier think they're going to get out of it, right? The carrier, a lot of them, Jamie, and you know this, right? There's a lot of them that don't know their business at all, and they just want more money regardless of what they think they deserve, right? In my eyes, if a broker is getting $20,000 for a load, in my worth and what I requested for it and what I quoted it at was $1,500, I don't care if they're making 20 grand, right? I mean, I know I'm going to the extreme of that number, but if my worth, and we always tell everybody, like, know your worth. If my worth is X amount of dollars and that's what I quoted it for, regardless of what that broker is getting from it, doesn't matter, because they came to me with a quote, or they came to me with a request to quote it. I quoted it. They're not holding a gun to my head to tell me that, no, I need you to do it less. If they come back and want it less, then I just don't run it. We've turned down several loads over the last few years that we've been in business because the rate just wasn't there. We know what our cents per mile is. We know what it costs to move that truck, and we're not doing it for less, right? Know your worth. People talk so much about rates, and all they want to talk about is rates. Nobody wants to talk about customer service in this business. And that's where we've been able to, from our company standpoint, that's where we've been able to get a lot of direct customers, because we do focus on customer service. And Dan, I'll give you one example, right? The broker that I met in Tampa, that we moved consistently for every single day, we had a load that very easily he could have said, sorry, this one is on you guys. We had a container that had a small, tiny hole in the top of it. We could not notice that by any inspection that we did on it. Well, it happened to rain on the way up there, and the container leaked. There was water in the container, and it was still raining when we got to the shipper. The shipper refused it. Not only did that customer say, or did that broker say, no, man, this is not on you. There's no way you could have indicated it. We got paid for that dry run. In addition, we had to store that empty container for a few days until the steamship line actually was able to redo the EIR to return an empty container. He paid us for storage to store that container for a few days while we waited on it. And it was more than what we even asked for. So if you build the relationships with the right brokers, they're not only going to be transparent, but they're going to, you're going to get the rate that you need to be able to move and to be able to grow your business. But if you're just chasing the people that are on, and this is no disrespect to load boards, because there is a need for load board. My feeling on load boards is the majority of the people that are posting on load boards are brokers that don't have relationships already with carriers, that they can't go say, hey, I need this to be moved. Again, I know there's some one-offs where something at the last minute changed and the broker broke down or something and needed to find a load. I get it. But if you have a relationship, brokers have a relationship with carriers, your stuff's going to get moved. Vice versa, the other way around. So, again, I think carriers need to focus more on knowing their worth, knowing their rate, their break-even costs, and building that relationship and having and stop doing business with the brokers that want to treat you like crap. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? If they don't want to pay your detention, they don't want to pay whatever it is, your overweight fee, whatever, just stop working with them. Eventually, they're not going to get any customers, and they're going to go away. Yep.
Now, Steve, you were on the shipper side as well, so I want to get your unique perspective, at least among this group. As a shipper, was the margin the broker made on the load important to you as a shipper?
No, I just wanted, at the end of the day, I just wanted my stuff there. I didn't care what the shipper got. I didn't care what the carrier got, right? I just wanted my stuff here, and I wanted it done with the best quality customer service I could possibly get it.
Gotcha. Hey, let's welcome Jamie Hagen back to the show. Jamie, you there?
Hopefully I'm here.
Hopefully. Welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, sorry about that. There's a little bit of a weather situation here in North Dakota, so that detained me.
I think there's always a weather situation in North Dakota, isn't there?
This time of year, there definitely is.
I had a broker reach out to me yesterday and want me to start doing regular runs up there. I'm like, dude, he's got freight coming out. I said, well, I can get paid coming up there, how's the weather? And I laughed at him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's not good.
Jamie, let's get you up to speed here. So, what got you into trucking in the first place, my friend? And what is your perspective on the whole transparency conversation from where you sit?
What got me into trucking was complete and total boredom. I live out here on the plains of the Dakotas. There's nothing to do. It's flat. It's grass. It's crops. Trucks travel the world, right? All over North America. So I figured I'd go for an adventure. My dad and my uncle were truck drivers, so that kind of started the whole program, right? So I've been at it for 34 years, but really I've been in a truck since I've been in diapers. So like you could say I've been in a truck my whole entire life. So been on my own with my own authority here now since 2020. Prior to that, I was an operator leased to a carrier. So I've kind of done it all: company driver, leased carrier, now, completely out on my own here. So I've got a wide variety of opinions on the subjects. On broker transparency, I would have had a different opinion in 2020 than I do today. Mainly because I've started working with some really great brokers and established some amazing relationships where I've seen their back office and talked with them personally and got to know them. It's made a huge difference in my opinion on how the system works. So,
How has
personally,
that changed your position on it?
well, I went from everybody's basic opinion in the sense that, all you hear is the negativity. You know what I mean? It's the negative stuff that well, it's life, isn't it? And it's not just the brokers, it's everybody in life. Everyone complains about certain things. So those things get the most heat, everyone sees that, the complaints. So I had an opinion about brokers before I ever got into helping them move freight. Since getting to know them personally, it's changed a lot simply because it's just another business. They're just trying to. I couldn't do my favorite broker, SMJ Freight Solutions, out of Wapaton, North Dakota. They, Susie runs that company. She's a great gal. She's been doing it for 20 years, and she has got a great relationship with several businesses in the Dakotas here that I couldn't have because she moves several hundred loads a month. I couldn't do that. I only got 10 trucks. So I see her side of it. She can manage all of this with several trucking companies and meet her customers' needs. Helps us a lot. None of their stuff ever reaches the load board ever. It's all, relationship based. And it's really led me to see that's, it's a great way to work because she does the sales. She's the one that goes and kisses the babies and shakes the hands and has the relationship with the shippers and knows everybody and knows the ins and outs, knows what they want for paperwork and how to bill it and everything, all that stuff. She just gives me the load and I do what I do best, and that's move freight. So to me, it's a very symbiotic relationship, like it works best for both of us. It's my opinion.
Very cool. Yeah, Trey asked the question, Jamie, what led you to move away from your leased on situation to holding your own authority?
Well, it's a good question. I had a great relationship with Cliff Eastman Incorporated, pulling tank. I had 3 trucks with them. Right at COVID happened in 2020 in March, everyone got laid off. And then 2 weeks later, everyone's like, oh, wait, we all still need to eat. And then trucking fired back up. And it was at that moment I realized I needed to create my own situation. You know what I mean? Like you got to create your own destiny versus someone else is creating it. You're just tied to them, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I wanted an alternative. So they were giving away trucks right at the beginning in 2020. In the summer of 2020, they were really heavily discounting because everyone thought we were dying, right? You remember that? Like when we all thought we were going to die. So the trucks are just sitting on the lots, trailers are just sitting on the lots. So I just ran out and bought a truck and I started my own authority. And I said, well, at least I'd have this on the backside if something were to ever happen where I was no longer needed here. I'd still have a business and my destiny would be my own. So that's what got me into it, really.
Gotcha. Well, you got in the truck game at the right time because right after that, prices just went absolutely bananas.
It went bananas, and I, had to buy equipment as we ramped up, in that segment. Thankfully, I had a great relationship with Mack Trucks and was able to levy that to get trucks. And then I was also able to the local South Dakota utility dealer, they weren't selling trailers to anybody unless you were from South Dakota, their selling area. So I was able to get trailers that way. Not that I say I didn't overpay for them, but I still got them. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's refocus on the transparency conversation again real quick. So question. So we've had a lot of conversations. I'm sure everybody else has too, regarding the pushback that will inevitably come from brokers So a lot of the conversation around this issue is focused on what brokers will do in light of more carriers requesting to see their rates, right? And the initial sentiment is brokers will either continue to include the waiver in their contracts, and if carriers push too hard for them to give up their rates, they just won't use the carriers. So my question is, if carrier, and again, I'm coming from the broker perspective, right? I sit in the broker seat, or I sat in the broker seat, so I'm asking this as a broker. If carriers have the right to not work with the brokers they don't want to work with, what prevents brokers from not working with the carriers they don't want to work with? And is that discrimination or is it not?
I mean, it's no, not at all. It's a
No.
business thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be working with whoever they see fit. And, I mean, they could change the wording on that from waive your right and waive your duty. They could put end your duty for that. So, but the reality is, like what Steve was saying, let's not focus on the rates because that, and Adam, about the data. Let's focus on that, really trying to figure out what that customer needs. Like, can you really, as a carrier, look at that customer and say, I can fulfill all your requirements that you need me to haul. I mean, I don't want entitled distribution because just because I have a truck and a trailer and a driver doesn't mean I'm entitled to that freight. And I don't want to take from the top, which is the brokers. I really just want to get to the customer and tell them what they need, and I can build a business around that. And if you understand what your cost is and what it takes to meet those requirements, then you're running a business. And that's what it all comes down to.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, too, I think brokers need to sit back and think, if this can help get rid of the fraud and theft, or as our friend Dale Preck says, #scumbags, I think that you want to take a look at that, because if brokers can eliminate a lot of their competitors that are truly not doing it right and are double brokering and all that kind of stuff, right? What does that do to the industry as well? So I think there's a lot to think about, right? I mean, there is a ton of fraud in our country, in and around freight. And what is everybody doing to fix it? If this is, even the carriers need to sit back and look at, this is not 100% just around trying to get us a little bit more money, right? It's also trying to fix an industry that is severely broken in a lot of, it affects our insurance rates, because the more and more claims that get turned in on theft, it involves and it affects so much more than just what we're actually getting on the rate as well.
Yeah, and Steve, going back to that, it's literally if we just, the opportunity to be a broker and a carrier to do things right there's so much opportunities there, because sitting 1 week into listening to how these brokers treat their carriers, like that's the opportunity right there. Like, man, if I just do it differently than that brokerage, I will get the carriers. I mean, the capacity is capacity. We're not creating more capacity, but it's an opportunity. If you're going to be a douche, then that's great. Like, I'm going to take your customers because it's going to be my turn.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe that's what we should name our tour next year. Not the certified non-scumbag, but the certified non-douchebag tour. I like that.
Well, y'all check it out. So my network of brokers, man, no matter where the market grows, I'm still going to continue to work for my network, because you know what? They have sustained me for the past 2.5, 3 years, where a lot of people didn't sustain. Will there be some adjustment in rates? Of course, as the market changes, there'll be some adjustment. But I'm not gonna go out here and say, no, well, look, these other carriers are getting this, so you got to pay me that, or I'm not going to run for you. I'm not going to do that, because what we know is the boom bust cycle. If you rode the roller coaster of the boom bust cycle, it's coming again. No matter where it goes, it's coming again. I think that's what we need to concentrate on, because what we know is there's plenty out here for everybody to eat. There's an imbalance. Our problems are systemic, and I don't know all the answers. I don't know the answers, but something's got to change, or we just keep repeating the same folly that we've been repeating: boom bust, boom bust. Brokers come in, flood the market, and then they go out, and carriers come in and flood the market, and it don't make no sense. Here's my viewpoint on it. Okay, so Mr. Hagen, myself, others that have been successful. I mean, I'm not killing it, but I'm able to provide for my family. Working brokered freight and spot market, not being tied to a contract, allows me the freedom to be able to do it my way. and get the job done any way I see fit. Allows me the freedom that when I get ready to go home, I don't have to worry about covering that load that's coming up that week. I do have loads that I run every week for brokers that I've been running. The one I delivered yesterday, I've been running for a year. We pick it up every week. It goes to Little Rock, and then every other week we load out of the same door and come over to Patesville. It pays me good money to come over here. It's laid out well. Do my 10-hour break on site. So there's a lot of things that go into the planning of the load, and it works well because we can stay on site. We can do our 10-hour break, bump the dock, get out, get reloaded in the same dock, go to the next one, and same process. It delivers straight through. So basically, in one day, I make $2,400 coming from Texas, Temple, Texas, to Batesville, Oklahoma. Pretty good rate, but it's solid. It's there every week and every other week. So moving forward, I'll continue to run these same lanes I run. I'll continue to stay in the places that I know where the freight is going to be hot. I mean, because that's the key to making it in the spot market and being a small carrier is knowing the markets, knowing where and where not to send your truck, knowing the rates, and I feel the transparency, even the dumbest carrier, uneducated carrier, if they see what's in the lane, they're going to bid it differently next time. Now, even though we're surviving and succeeding and getting by out here, what I feel and what I know is that everybody else's business and the way they're conducting business does affect me every day. It affects my ability when I go to the load board to be able to negotiate, because they're going to tell me, and that's another one of my problems is that, man. I drill down on that all the time. I've been doing this for a year and a half. The first thing you hear when you get on the load board is, oh, this is the average on that on that lane. Wow, that drives me up the wall. And my reply is always the same. Okay, well, I'm not your average carrier. I speak English. I communicate very well. I'm going to be on time. I'm not going to play. I prefer tracking. So send me the tracking. I want you to know I'm doing what I'm supposed to, where I'm at, and you'll see when I get under a load, I don't stop. That gains me return business and benefits my business. 90% of my business is return business by brokers. They know when they put it on my truck that I'm going to provide the service required and go above and beyond to make sure that the load goes smooth. So when they put it on my truck, they don't have to worry about it. Now, oh, where's he at? What's he doing? Why is he setting in that truck stop? Didn't he just stop at that truck stop? Service is king. The better service you provide, the better rates you're going to get. But the people that's not doing that affects my job and makes my job that much harder. So I don't know, man. We got to fix it, y'all.
Yeah, I just want to say this, though, just to your point, though, just think about that, though. One of the main reasons why, your brokers that you work with, they know you. They know that you're going to be on time. They know when you're running your break. They know what you're doing. But when you're on spot and you're just on a spot, you're just another number. You got to prove it to you. You got to prove it to the person that you want to do business with. That's where that trust panel comes in. And a lot of times, man, that when they don't have those relationships that Steve just talked about, when you don't have it, all they're going to do is go by data. All they're going to do is go by what they have available to them. And until you prove them otherwise. I think that it's also important too, going back to just the foundation of the conversation, is like relationships are way more important than anything else when it comes down to it. Once you establish relationships with those that treat you right, that do you right, then at the end of the day, those are the folks that really, really matter when it comes down to it. But then you've got a problem with the ones that don't know how to build relationships, the ones that don't know how to go out and look for ways to improve their business based on relationships. And that's the reason why I think that, when it comes to the spot for it, I think the load boards almost took the turn society to this. The spot load boards kind of make us so antisocial these days, man. You should hear some of these calls when carriers get on the phone and call brokers. So like I listen to these calls where you hear carriers calling brokers, or when brokers are emailing carriers. Man, I tell you, man, to be honest with you, man, if half the people was like face to face, man, I'd have to put hands on half the people the way that they talk, because it's so disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's another thing. That's the reason why, when it comes down to social media trolls and all that other stuff, man, and all that other nonsense, we can agree and we could disagree as long as we maintain respectfully. But a lot of times, man, it's just the things that go on. People forgot how to have a normal conversation. If you don't want to do business with me, Dan, cool. We can move away and we can just and that's it. I don't gotta cuss you up and down, talk about your family, and do all that other. It's just a weird place, man.
Yeah. I lost count about 8 years ago about the number of times I got threatened by carriers with my life, or they're going to come to my house or whatever. Well, that's something to think about too in this whole conversation is it's the same way with respect. If you don't give respect, you can't receive respect. If you treat yourself like a commodity, you can't complain when people treat you like a commodity. And that goes for brokers, that goes for carriers. A lot of times when we talk about, freight that's, spot freight over the load boards, whatever, you are commoditizing yourself in a way, whether it's the broker commoditizing their service by putting it on the load board, or whether it's a carrier commoditizing themselves by putting their truck up on the load board. Not that load boards are a bad marketplace to do business, they're not. But you have to understand that the loads and the quality of relationships that you're going to build on those load boards are not the kind that are going to be long-term sustaining for you as a carrier or even for you as a broker. So if you act like a commodity, you're going to be treated like a commodity.
The load board can't be your only business, period. Like I had to learn that the hard way. And then until I figured that out, because, and not just from a load board perspective, but my first my first couple of years, I was figuring that part out, and then we went direct, had our own customers, and then the rest was easy. But the thing is that if you just focus your business on a load board, and that's the only tool that you have, then you're going to have the ebbs and flows that comes along with it. So it's so important that you develop those handful of brokers. Whether it's Jamie probably got like 2 or 3. Or I know the other Jamie. I didn't realize we had 2 Jamies on here. They got Jamie and Jamie. It just depends on
Double
what
Jamie
you got.
Day.
Yeah, man. But at the end of the day, man, if you just work with the folks that's going to take care of you, make you happy. Sometimes, for those that didn't know, like the whole broker concept was really just to put in place to get you backhauled into your original market as a carrier. So like if you just focus on those brokers that put you in the right position, put you in the right situations, that do good business by you, that pay your accessorials, that treat you right. Hagen just made a great point, man. He knows the young lady, knows the family, he knows what they got going on, understands the operation, they have a great relationship. I think the relationships matter more than anything. Relationships will put you in places where currency can't. And I think that's where the biggest focus has to be on.
Yeah, I think that load boards.
Yeah, hold on one second, Dan. I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. I do actually have to run. I got another appointment that I got to run to. So a great conversation. I'd love to do it again. Appreciate
absolutely.
Everything you guys, appreciate everything that this movement's doing, and connecting, everybody like this on the phone to talk about these issues. So appreciate you guys. Take care. Jamie, be safe out there.
Take it easy, brother.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. We'll talk soon, my friend.
So here's the way I use the load board, and I encourage other carriers to do the same. When I hit the load board, like I said, I'm familiar with the lanes I run, very familiar. I'm looking for the loads that are from my brokers. I'm not just going down every load, looking at every load. My first, when I hit it a certain way. I'm looking for my network. I'm looking for loads in my network. Then when I see the load, the first thing I do, I don't reach out and call off that load board. I go to my phone and get my connection. Well, I have their cell phone number, and that's who I call on the load. And that's where I negotiate the load. Like the one I'm on this morning is, I was going down the list, bam, seen one going back where I wanted to go. I called the broker, got a good rate on it, send it over, let's do it. I load at 6 p.m. tonight. I'll be in Fort Worth at 7 o'clock in the morning. $1,500 from here to Fort Worth. I'm in Batesville, Mississippi. It's 21 miles from me. Build them relationships. Relationships are important. They're not always going to sustain you every day, but if you have that relationship. So when I work for a broker and we communicate well, and most of them tell me, hey man, I want to work with you. Save my contact. Here's my cell phone number. Okay. Call that broker. Continue to build that reputation with that broker as that relationship grows, and you trust him, he trusts you. That benefits the business deal. Try to build the network, man. The network is great. I still use a load board every day, but I'm not looking necessarily for loads every day. I'm looking for my network of brokers to be able to stay in my network. That's the reason why I have the return business I do, and that's what carriers need to understand. It's not that you can't work spot and be successful on only spot, because you can. It's how you work spot.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Relationships. I think if it comes down to mandates or relationships, I wonder how many people in the industry would choose relationships over mandates. I think that's one of the fundamental questions. There's a LinkedIn user, I can't see who it is because I'm on my phone. FMCSA 49 CFR 371.3C is the main issue that some brokers have an issue with. Who on the panel wants to address this one? So for those who are not familiar with the actual statute, C is each party to a broker transaction has the right to review the record of the transaction to be kept by these rules. The issue with that one is that a right given in a regulation like this is a right that is waivable, and that's where a lot of the brokerage contracts, as they currently stand, have carriers waive the right to review the information. Let's chat about that for a little bit. Who wants to weigh in?
I don't think they are waivable. I mean, think about it, y'all. Here's a situation. TQL has some of the most stringent waivers and contracts there is, Uber Freight. So we have gotten transparency enforced on both of them, regardless of them having the waivers in their contracts. FMCSA compelled them to comply with 49 CFR 371.3. They set precedent in doing that and proved that it is in their purview. But not only that, they proved that your right is not offset by a waiver.
Okay. So in the proposed rulemaking, proposed rule changes, rather, what changes?
I mean, they change it from right to duty. So now they have a duty to give up that information versus a right. So, I mean, but again, contracts, if you're gonna be a carrier, you're gonna sign a contract. In order to work with them, you're gonna have. That's why I'm very neutral about it, because I don't think it's gonna solve anything in a way where, okay, now they have a duty. What are we gonna do with that data?
It's not, brother.
Yeah.
What FMCSA done here is kick the can down the road. They didn't do anything. The ruling, the proposed rule that they come out with does not change the status quo, because it didn't address the petitions filed, especially by OIDA, when they wanted the compulsory enforcement within 48 hours to avoid carriers being discriminated against for requesting the right or the duty. So they didn't do nothing.
I was just wondering, how do you think they can enforce this, though, if they can barely enforce, safety and compliance?
That's the question. The bigger issue is we're asking for more regulation.
Yeah,
you got to be very, very careful when you ask for more regulation. And we're in a deregulated environment, and we were deregulated for the last 44 years. We're asking for regulation by an agency that struggles with managing the current regulations that they have the duty to regulate, which is safety. Our roads are not any safer than they were, and I think that ultimately what we're asking is a race to the bottom, because not only will we have, from a carrier perspective, but your shippers are going to be looking at this as well. And I just think that it ultimately is just going to drive rates down more than, so we got to be careful what we ask for. And then ultimately, when it comes just to oversight, like back in 1980, Congress said it 45 years ago. We have no idea on how we're going to do this. We have no idea. With the influx of carriers, we do not know how we're going to keep up with this. Oh, by the way, here's a Secretary of Transportation, and we're going to task him with doing that.
Well, and the Motor Carrier Act of 2000 or 1999 is kind of a tacit admission to that when the FMCSA was started, because they spent 20 years not really having a handle on the regulations they were trying to manage. Here's something else too, and I was talking to Matt Leffler about this a few weeks ago with the overturning of Chevron deference, which is the regulation that said basically if an organization within the government is basically overstepping their brief, if they're outside of their original mandate or intent, then those regulations are subject to being revoked. And again, I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. I probably just screwed that all up. But basically, if there's a regulation out there that is outside the original intended authority of the organization, there stands I think a decent chance of a lot of these regulations getting rolled back anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
And
the regulation, the regulation. Now, check this out. The Chevron deference give the bureaucracies, the bureaucrats, the power to interpret the law. So, with them overturning the Chevron deference, they have lost the ability to be able to interpret and create regulations in reference to the laws that was codified by Congress. They have lost that, and now they've got to stick to the letter of the law, or they can be held accountable. Okay, so the Chevron deference is a big thing. Okay, but it doesn't change rules and regulations that was codified by Congress. Congress makes law,
Yeah, but they were old
not
laws.
not the bureaucrats.
I think the issue is that how old they are. I don't think that I think that the bigger thing in this is that if there was a modification and an amendment to the current law that fits the current business model, then it would be different. But when they created the original Transparency Act, there were no such thing as load boards and brokerage transactions that were handled direct. It was a totally different way of doing business. So if they modified it back in 1990 or whenever they went to do the indemnification, if that was modified and said, hey, okay, we understand that this is what you're doing now, you're not playing by the rules, you're not playing fairly, it'd be different. We're talking the same language, but the Motor Carrier Act, the whole transparency is 45 years old. We weren't doing business like we were doing back then.
Now let me make a point here. So what triggered deregulation of trucking? What triggered the deregulation of trucking is the same in 1980 was the same thing that triggered the Flow Initiative in 2021, which went into effect in March of 22. So the Flow Initiative and deregulation was a direct result of hyperinflation and stagflation. Okay, the government was in a spot where they had to control it, so they took action to do this. So let's look at deregulation. Deregulation, when it come about, it was, we're deregulating the trucking industry, the transportation industry. We're deregulating it. They did not deregulate trucking. They did not deregulate carriers. We're more highly regulated today than we've ever been. So if you go back to the deregulation, before deregulation, carrier, you said there was 6 of them. They was all part of the union under the Teamsters, the Brotherhood of Truckers, and they controlled the freight with an iron fist. The only way you could get in was know somebody, but also, so if a carrier like myself went out and got a direct ship contract, I can't meet the capacity that's needed for the demand, then I could turn and go to another carrier and say, okay, well, I want to trip lease this to you. So what deregulation done? They say deregulation. It's a misnomer. It's false. So they took brokers and deregulated the general freight broker, but they did not. At the same time they regulated the carrier. So at that point, we could not go carrier to carrier and pass freight on a trip lease from one carrier to another. That became double brokering, but at the same time, they deregulated. The broker had the ability to co-broker and pass freight broker to broker to broker. So it's kind of misleading when you look at it.
Yeah, but I think we're feeling the effects now of deregulation. There's a lot of inequality. There's a lot of freaking, the market is at risk for all this fraud. And I mean, that's why it goes back to what we can fix, right? Because no one's going to go and even if this passed, who's going to enforce it? We still have to get back to relationships. And I think that's a human way of dealing with it versus, okay, we could go and deal with all the regulations. Adam said, what do we need more regulations for? Because the reality is it's already failed us, right? There was a risk of market failures. That's what's happening now. Monopolies, like we're seeing that. Like monopoly is like, talk about, brokers are having, they have access to, but if we could get together and figure out a way to build better relationships, understand our businesses, and then educate others to do the same, we would be better off as a whole.
So let me put something out here. Now, y'all are industry leaders. Y'all are industry leaders out here. Okay. Y'all are the leaders of the industry, man. I want to put something in y'all's head and think about it. And if I want y'all to research it, you don't have to comment on it now, but look at an SRO, a regulatory organization. You see it worked in real estate. You see it worked in stockbrokers. Wall Street stockbrokers. I mean, maybe it's something to consider instead of depending on the government to come in and fix this, that we get together and build an SRO of industry leaders such as yourself, stakeholders, and come up with ways to fix it. Because that's the end result is getting a fix that benefits everybody and stops the fraud and the scam.
I think that's
We
what
can't
Dan.
depend on the government. We can't depend on the government to do it. So we're going to have to step up as industry leaders. Not me. I'm a little fish in a big pond. But y'all are industry leaders.
And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. You know, but I think that, and I have a good backdrop, right? Nah, but I got to go, gentlemen. I really appreciate. I know we can talk about this for like 2 hours, 3 hours, but I gotta get out of here. Hey, I appreciate the conversation. Thanks for the invite.
Appreciate it, Adam. Yeah.
Stay safe out there, Tristan. You got a wonderful background, man. I'm flying out to you ASAP. And
Let's go. California.
Yeah, man.
If you guys want to come out to California with your trucks, we can inspect them all.
And perfect. Yeah.
Come on, Jamie. Come on. You want regulation? I got you.
All the regulation you can spare.
Jamie, you be safe out there, man. Take care, man.
Yeah, I mean, my truck's 2005, brother. It don't have nothing on it. I could go to California. I just don't like California, brother. I just don't.
Yo, man, if you like me though, if you want regulation though, you could come here. We have the most regulations out of all of the states.
Yeah. Well, and gentlemen, I want to take that. I need to take that as a cue. We got Steve dropping off. We got Adam dropping off. Let's take that as a cue to kind of wind this up. What I wanted to point out though, one of the things we're doing at the Broker Carrier Summit is we are creating a carrier advisory group within the network. So if you have been to a summit or if you are a member of the Broker Carrier Summit BCS Freight Network, we would love, and you want your voice to actually, start creating an impact or have a bigger impact. I would invite all you guys to reach out to Adam and Troy Wheatman on the board. They are putting that together, and we want carriers' voices to be heard. We want every voice to be heard. And I think within the context that the summit is doing it, I think is the most beneficial, because we're having those conversations face to face. We're sitting down across the table. We're breaking bread. We're just having real, authentic conversations. So, and also we have a lot more we can talk about. I think I'd love to have all you guys back sometime in the next couple of weeks. We'll wait till after the holidays, spend some time with your families. But this conversation, I don't think this conversation is going away anytime soon. So we can either have the conversation or we can change it. And I look forward to changing it with you guys.
Yes. Well, just the beginning.
Dan, let me point something out to you. What moves the ball and creates what moves the ball is not comfortable conversation. It's the uncomfortable conversation that moves the ball and spurs change. So we need to have them, right?
Absolutely. That was why the BCS was founded. We took the conversations that people were having and said, hey, brokers, it's time for you to own your shit, right? Carriers, it's time for you to own yours. Yep. And everybody come to the table with an equal footing, saying, hey, each of us on both sides of the industry, we have things we have to work on, right? That should be an unofficial tagline. Own your S-Star-RT.
It's awesome. Step up or step out. And don't work with double brokers. Work with double Jamie.
Double J.
I like that. It's time for carriers to stand up and have a voice. And I fight every day, and I try to tell them, look, man, I'll follow you. Get in the lead, brother. Please step up and take it, because I want to go home and go fishing, man. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here doing this every day, screaming my head off. Yeah, they're not standing up, brother. They got to stand up. Absolutely. They're starting to. We're starting to see it. And it's going to be a great thing, man. It's time for carriers to stand up and quit accepting that, roll with the flow, go along to get along, and stand up and make their voice heard and say, hey, this is what we need.
Yeah, well, and the BCS is looking forward to being more and more of a platform for carriers to do that. So last question in the chat here, respectfully, what is the difference between this and the OOIDA? We will answer that question more in depth. I'd love to have OIDA, ATA, TCA, TIA, all the agencies. I would love to have them on a call here on the show together, hashing out differences on transparency as well. Maybe we'll reach out to to Louis or somebody over there at OIDA to see if they want to chat about this with us. But that's all we have for today, everybody. Appreciate you guys' time. We went over a little bit, but again, this is a very important conversation, the conversation of the day in the industry. So I wish you all well. You have any more questions or comments? If you found this content valuable, again, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter, subscribe to our the podcast. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Everybody be well, stay safe, and if I don't see you before then, happy holidays, and I'll see you guys in 2025.
Be
Merry
safe.
Christmas.